Over about the last 20 years, a lot of body shops, the smaller ones, ma and pa, I call them, body shops that do, kind of a middle of the line job have just disappeared. Even some of them like Earl Scheib, long gone, and even the only ones remaining are pretty much the ones like Mako or the big body shops like Gerber Collision or Caliber Collision and some of the other big name ones that have multiple locations. But all the smaller ones, like the ones that you used to have up the street, that would just do a paint job for your car, and they charged a middle of the road price and they did a nice job, they're pretty much gone. I'd say of almost 80% of them. There used to be quite a few in the city that I live in, and there's actually a couple of reasons why this is. One of them we're going to talk about a little bit later in the video, which is basically California. That's happened a lot more than any other states, but you're probably seeing them disappear where you're at as well, and we're going to talk about maybe why that is in this video. Because of social media and YouTube and some of the other platforms out there that people put videos on showing how they do body work now, and that they weld in all their panels and make everything look metal finish perfect. Well, at least it looks that way. People have higher expectations on what a body shop is really supposed to do. Basically, a body shop is going to repair the dent and make it, or repair the areas or rust or whatever in a proper way that will make it last 10 to 20 years or more, and give you something that looks nice again. And today people are doing a lot more of this butt welding and that sort of thing. And so they go to a little body shop and they go, well, how do you do the work? And the guy goes, well, this is how we do it, or whatever. Or they see work being done there and they're like, oh, that's Mickey Mouse, or that's no good. When that kind of body work was done since the 60s, if you look at some of the other YouTube channels, like some of the old videos that I had where I was just showing, lap, tap, and fill videos, that's kind of the normal way that most body shops do it, that are affordable. If you want to have the uber restoration done and have everything butt welded in, of course you could always do that. That started in about, I'm going to say, the late 90s, early 2000s, and it became kind of the standard today, which in some ways, people go, well, that's great that we have new standards, but it's also not so great because not everybody can afford that. Some people just want the little old body shop just to paint their car, whether it's a classic or it's their newer car. So often they end up going to places like Mako because it's kind of the last affordable place. And it used to be tons of smaller body shops and places like Mako, and usually the ones that were kind of the middle of the road did a little nicer job and put a little more care into it, and you got a little bit nicer looking result. Where some people, the whole middle road job is kind of gone. So if you guys have ever seen the channel called Lakeside Auto Body, I don't really know the guy, but the funny thing is he's all the way in the Midwest, in what I think they call it Lakeside because he's near Lake Michigan, and he has videos out on traditional way to do body work. If you watch the videos over there, that's the stuff that normally it was done, and how it's been done and safely done, and to an industry standard for many, many years. In fact, it's still, a lot of the shops are still doing it that way today, where he has particularly an area where they butt welded in, that's the visible portion, and then where it goes into the area where there's rust or whatever, he might have it lapped that area. On the body lines, he might have it butted, you know, and especially with these newer cars with 22 gauge steel or thinner, it's pretty much the best way to do it in those circumstances as well, even today. But because of YouTube and because of you know, guys out, you know, having what I call it a pissing match. Everybody tries to do a better and better job or whatever, trying to do it better than the next guy and better than the next guy, just like they did out in Glamis. You know, we used to have air-cooled Volkswagens, powered all the sand buggies, and now guys have, you know, V8, turbo V8, supercharged V8 powered, uber fast sand dune drivers that kill people. And you know, that's just where it's gone because of the old pissing match. You know, I can do a little bit better than you, you can do a little bit better than the next guy, you can do a little bit better than the next guy, and all of a sudden now it's just kind of gotten way out of control. And you know, turbo nitrous powered dune buggy, you know, see how much sand you can throw, how much money you can put into it, and it's just kind of, the fun has kind of been lost in some ways. So I mean, it was a lot of fun when it was an air-cooled Volkswagen, and now, you know, it still is a lot of fun with an air-cooled Volkswagen. And you know, guys want to have these, you know, really, really expensive things, and they figure that's the industry standard, but it's not affordable for everyone. So it's kind of gotten that way with body and paint. And honestly, there really isn't anything wrong with the way that Lakeside does his work. I mean, everything I've watched on his channel is pretty much 100% legit. You got guys out there now that go, hey, I could never use glue to fix an automotive repair. And it's like, you know, there's great times to use those products. It's like having another tool in your toolbox. If you can use panel adhesive to do a good solid repair, it's a great way to do it, and sometimes it's actually better than the old traditional welded in, because when you weld in panels, you're only able to do it so well. And a lot of times, you know, there's all this stuff out there, it's like people are overdoing everything. You've got guys taking their cars and they take them down to a place and they dip them. We used to do this, you know, a long time ago. It was legal to do in California. I don't think it is now. But we used to take fenders down and have them dipped, you know, and then be all stripped out, and you'd paint it or prime it and paint it and all that. But guys will take their whole car and have it dipped, which is not bad if you follow the whole thing through. If you're going to get your car dipped in acid, then you better damn well have it dipped in some sort of a zinc coating afterwards to stop it from rusting, because now on all the inner panels, on the insides of metal that you cannot get to, you're removing all that protectant. So even though, yeah, the paint's old or whatever, doesn't look very good, that still was protecting the metal, and guys are doing that. So there's this whole pissing match going on out there, and guys are just kind of getting lost in this craziness. And a lot of people watching the videos or watching these things think that that's the only way that they can do their work, because it's the only way to do it right, and it's not really true. Butt welding and stuff is actually a nice tool. Again, it started in probably the early 2000s, late 90s. I can't remember exactly when. And even today, butt welding in 22 gauge is probably not a good, safe repair. Again, like I said, what happens is right next to where you weld, when you get the metal hot, that metal actually is a little tiny bit thinner than the metal that you welded, because even though you're adding weld to it, the heat actually makes it a little bit thinner right next to the weld, and often they crack right there, and that was the whole reason that we didn't do it back in the old days. So now you have guys going out and they butt weld in a piece, and they grind it to where the weld is completely gone. And a lot of times behind the panel, if you can't see back there, maybe you didn't get proper penetration, and you might have a really thin piece of metal, especially when you're using a grinder and you're going over that weld and you're taking off a little bit on either side of the weld to try and get it to look perfect. I tend to like to leave a little bit of weld there because I don't want to take off too much of that metal right next to the weld. But YouTube is so full of it, you know, and when I put up a video and I don't remove all the weld, the algorithm looks at it and goes, oh, this guy doesn't even do it right because of these types of things. When in actuality, it's probably much better to not remove all the weld. Okay, I do it sometimes just because I can. If I look at it, it might be mounded up enough, and I might have enough, a thick enough area or whatever. So it just depends. But typically, I'll leave some weld there. So today, now you've got, you know, you used to only have a body man and a painter in most body shops. You had a body man that would do the metal work, and then he would go and put the filler on and then get it so it was straight. Then you would take it to the painter, and the painter would do the primer, blocking, and paint. So now you've got basically three things to do. You take it to a metal guy. He goes out and does the metal work and butt welds in the panels and does the spot welding and all that stuff to try and make it look exactly perfect back to original. And then you've got your body man that goes and puts the filler on and straightens it out, because usually it's not going to be metal finished. So then you go to the paint schedule. So a guy might go out and literally spend $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 on having the metal work done, and then when he goes to the painter, the body man and the painter, and he goes, okay, how much to get this thing painted? And they go, oh, it's $20,000. They go, what, $20,000? Well, yeah, that's because he's got to do the body work still, and you got to do the paint work. So now you're into the whole car. Before you bought all your parts and your project and all that stuff, $70,000, $80,000, $100,000. And so it's become kind of this thing where people are chasing these people that have just unlimited amounts of funds. Let me give you an example. So I know a guy who does Porsches, a shop that does Porsches out here, and they do these Uber Porsches for mega rich people. This guy, one of the Porsches they were working on was owned by a guy who was like a sheik type guy out of somewhere in the Middle East, and they were doing like a 911, 70s 911 restoration, and the guy wanted the biggest, best engine you could put in it, body work, paint, everything pretty much metal finished. And it's by the hour, so they charge, say, $135 an hour, and they just keep going. And there's no budget. There's no finished budget. There's no how many man hours do you want to put in it. It's, I want this. Get it there. How much money it costs, it doesn't matter. So this guy's a sheik. He's going to get this Porsche completely, it's probably done now. This is a while back. He's getting this Porsche repainted, redone, the upholstery, everything. He's going to have about $1.3 million in it, and it's probably only really worth $200,000, but he's going to have $1.3 million in it because that's what he wants. I want this color, I want this Porsche, and then when he gets it all done, he's going to drive it once, okay? And then this guy's going to take this thing and he's going to permanently mount it on his yacht, okay? So guys are out there chasing that guy, okay? So this is the kind of thing that's going on. You know, you guys, you can't afford to chase that guy's budget. And so what's happened is the body shop that's done the middle ground work is being forced to try and do that kind of a job that, you know, they have these uber expectations, and then, for the dime store budget. And it just can't happen. These guys charge $135 an hour. He'll have $1.3 million in a $200,000 Porsche. And a $200,000 Porsche is a pretty damn nice car. I mean, maybe $300,000, I don't know. But it ain't, we're nowhere near 1.3 million. And that's what the guys are spending. So, trying to chase that has created a void and a problem for a lot of people that are trying to get their cars just painted. I just want a middle of the road paint job. So that's why one of the reasons I started making videos for YouTube, because I figured, well, people are just going to have to do it themselves. You're not going to be able to find a guy who can do it. There's only a few guys. And then I got guys that are at the shows. I've seen guys at the shows. I mean, I haven't talked to any of you guys that watch the YouTube channel, but I've talked to other people, because usually you guys know. But I've talked to other people, and they're like, I took it to so-and-so shop. And I'm like, wow, that's a beautiful paint job. Yeah, and I made him do it 3 times. Well, that guy's out of business. Or I made him touch this up and touch this up and touch this. Did you offer him any more money? No. Oh, no, he better do it right. So what happens is that guy's no longer going to do it anymore. He's going to close his shop because he didn't make any money. And this sort of thing has been a disease that's been going on in the car community that, unless it stops, we're just going to only have showpiece museum cars, and then, the fun ones that you could just get in and drive. Either you build it yourself and do it, or, you're just, going to have that museum piece. And that's why maybe if you've gotten an estimate for painting your car, you find out, man, it's $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 just to paint my car. That's probably why, because there's so many people that, plus the price of paint. We'll talk about some of the other stuff in here in a second. But because there's so many people that have pushed the industry into that because of complaining and trying to get more for their money. I remember talking to a guy who said, what'd you pay to paint your bus? Oh, $7,500. And it looked really nice. I'm like going to myself, how many times did you take it back to him to get it that nice? Well, probably several times. Now that guy, we go to call him, he ain't doing it. So it's just a good idea if you're going to do that and you want that kind of a job, and you did find a nice little shop who will do it, that if you get done and you're unsatisfied and you think you want more, then offer them more money. That's just the big deal. That's what you should be doing. And a lot of guys aren't going to like this in this video because they have uber expectations. They don't realize how many man hours it takes to do that job, and that the industry standards for the work being done are like what's done on Lakeside Auto Body's YouTube. It's just like that. I mean, that's how, I'm here in California, he's in Michigan, and we did it the same way here. It's an industry standard. It's been the industry standard for most of my life. And then all of a sudden now, because one guy on YouTube or on the internet somewhere did this car a certain way, that everybody should do it that way. And the way that Lakeside's doing it is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. It will last for years. It will last more than your lifetime. It'll probably last longer than the life of the car. But yet guys want to do it for the next lifetime and the lifetime after that. And a lot of times the people who get the car at that point, they're not going to take care of it the same way you did. And they're not going to care, So why are you doing it for their lifetime? It's just kind of crazy what's been going on. So another thing that's been happening in California, another thing that's been pushing this the direction it's going, is we have here that if you own let's say I own a commercial building, and somebody comes in and they want to paint cars, or they want to do body work, or they want to do mechanics work in my building, and somehow or another they spill oil or whatever, that land, I own it. Let's say I own the building. if there's any kind of hazmat hazard, I have to be responsible to fix that. And as the owner of the building, I have to, rectify that in order to be able to sell it. The state and the city can go after me for the problems that the person made who was the tenant. And so a lot of commercial buildings now will not rent to anybody who's doing any automotive type repairs. So the only ones that are there are the ones that have been there for years, and they it's a huge financial commitment for you to rent to somebody like that, because if they jack up your property, you could be in for millions of dollars worth of damage, and you're only getting tens of thousands of dollars in rent, even if you're even getting that. So it's stupid for landlords to rent to them. It just really is, because of the way the law is. So a lot of landlords are not renting to body shops. The only ones that are out there are usually these big companies like Caliber Collision and they buy the property, and they take the risk because they own the property. And it's a different situation then. Then they're liable for their own thing. Where landlord, if you're just a smaller body shop, you can't afford to buy the lot or the land, and so that's been pushing people out of auto repair. So when a shop closes, more than likely, if they're renting the building, they're not going to rent again to another automotive repair. Even some upholstery shops, even though they don't deal with chemicals and all that, even if it's automotive related, a lot of times it's just a super big policy that they won't do it. They won't rent to anyone. So all of that's being pushed out of California. If you're wondering why there's so few shops now here, and also your EPA regulations and all that are also contributing as well. So you have that, you have you have to have all the vacuum system and all that other stuff. So all these shops, by the time you add up all those little things, you're either a giant shop working for insurance companies, and a lot of those are now totaling the cars more often than they're fixing them. So that's why you wonder, why is my insurance so expensive on my car? Well, in California, that's why, because if a car's registered in Arizona, you see that? Insurance is quite a bit less, just so you know. The reason why is because the repair shop costs are so much higher because of all those things. It all contributes to it. It's the environmental laws, it's all that other stuff that makes it impossible for a smaller shop to compete. So all you have is big shops, and they like to total cars, and that's just the way things are on the regular, your daily driver industry. And it's going to be interesting when they start pushing this narrative with electric cars, and all the cars seem to get totaled, that get in any kind of an accident as far as the regular cars go, and then they start disappearing really quickly, and everybody's forced to get an electric car. I don't know if that mandate's going to stick, but it's there now. So anyway, if you're wondering why they don't have body shops in California, that's pretty much why. So because of those rules alone. All right, well, hope that clarifies a few things. The whole industry is changing, the whole world's changing little by little, and this is what's been happening. Let's talk to you next video. Please like, share, and subscribe.